our deep divers, ever feel like you're carrying around a backpack just like overflowing with emotional baggage?
Oh, tell me about it.
Well, today we're diving into Effortless Letting Go. It's all about the Sedona Method, which is like trading in that heavy load for, some serious freedom, a little more clarity, all that good stuff.
Yeah. It's a really cool approach. Instead of like slapping a Band-Aid on those unwanted feelings, the Sedona Method really digs into the why.
Right.
It gives you these practical tools to understand those emotions and then ultimately let them go, the ones that might be holding you back.
Okay, so let's unpack this. The source material, it lays out 5 main approaches to releasing those feelings: choosing to let go, welcoming the feeling, diving into that emotion's core, dissolving those opposing polarities, and seeing through the feeling. Each one kind of taps into this thing the method calls our natural ability to let go.
It's like having a multi-tool, but for like emotional well-being.
Right.
You pick the approach that works best for you.
Exactly. And before we get into the specifics of each approach, I got to ask you about this analogy they use. The hand emotion analogy. Have you heard of this?
Yeah.
They talk about like holding a pen really tight and then letting it go.
Right.
And it's such a simple image, but it really drives home how much we like cling to our emotions.
It's such a good one because it takes this abstract concept, like holding on to emotions, and it just puts it into a physical sensation we can all relate to, right?
Yeah.
We've all had that feeling of gripping something really tightly,
Totally.
And it just highlights how we do the exact same thing with our feelings, like all the time, and we don't even realize it.
It's like we're gripping those emotions for dear life, thinking it'll give us control or something.
Yeah.
But like the analogy shows us, we always have a choice. We can loosen our grip. You're not stuck, you know? You have the power to choose differently.
And that's such an empowering message, right? Because it changes your perspective. It's like you stop feeling like a victim of your emotions.
Yeah.
And you start realizing that you have agency, you know? You can shape your own experience.
It's like that moment you realize you've been holding your breath and you didn't even realize it.
Yep.
Just letting go brings so much relief. Okay, but enough about gripping pens. Let's dive into those 5 ways to freedom. We've got choosing to let go, welcoming the feeling, diving into the emotions core, dissolving opposing polarities, and seeing through the feeling. What stands out to you from this list?
That's a good question. I think each approach, it kind of gives you a different way of engaging with your emotions, right? So it really depends on the person and then the specific emotion that they're, working with.
Yeah.
Like welcoming the feeling. That might be a gentler way to start for some people. It's less about fighting that emotion and more about just acknowledging that it's there, without judgment.
Can you give an example of how that might actually look in real life?
Totally. Okay, so imagine you're feeling anxious about this big presentation. Instead of trying to fight that anxiety or like shove it down, you just acknowledge it. You're just like, okay, I'm feeling anxious right now, and that's okay. And just by creating that space for the anxiety, but not letting it control you, you're already kind of taking a step toward releasing its grip.
That makes sense. So it's like you're saying to the anxiety, come on in, have a seat, I see you, but you don't run the show.
Exactly.
I like that.
Now, another approach that I find to be really powerful is that diving into the core of the emotion.
Okay.
And that one suggests that you just confront those feelings head on instead of avoiding them, which I think can be really, really powerful for, processing them and then ultimately releasing them.
Okay, that sounds intense, but also intriguing. Can you tell me more about how this diving deep actually works?
Yeah, so it involves like asking yourself this really simple question, but it's super profound and you do it over and over again. Could I let this feeling go?
Okay.
And you keep asking until you just like reach a point where you can genuinely release it. It's not about forcing it away.
Yeah.
It's more about understanding it, understanding your relationship to it and where it comes from.
So it's less about getting rid of it and more about understanding, accepting, and then choosing to let it go. I like that.
Yeah, exactly. And that's something to keep in mind with all these approaches, right?
Right.
The Sedona Method, it emphasizes finding what feels right for you.
Yeah.
There's no one size fits all.
Of course.
Some things might feel more challenging than others, depending on the emotion, in your history with it. You just have to approach it with compassion and curiosity.
Yeah. It's like finding your own path through a forest, There might be a trail or you might have to like make your own way. The important thing is to just keep moving forward. And speaking of moving forward, this method really stresses that it's not about overthinking, right? It's about experiencing your emotions and then choosing to let them go.
100%. It's about shifting from analysis to experience. So not thinking, but feeling.
It's like you can read about how to surf, but until you actually get out there and catch a wave, you can't just think your way onto the surfboard.
Totally.
You got to feel it, experience it.
That's a great way to put it. And that's exactly why the Sedona Method, includes this guided exercise, which if you're up for it, you can dive into right now.
All right, deep divers. Let's give this guided exercise a try. Don't worry, we're not going to go diving into the deep end emotionally just yet.
Right.
Think of it more like dipping your toes in, a cool, refreshing stream.
Okay.
The source material suggests starting with something small, a small feeling.
Yeah.
Something that you want to feel a bit better about just to get the hang of it.
It's like testing the water.
Exactly. So if you're game, just find a comfy spot.
Yeah.
Close your eyes if you want, maybe,
Uh-huh.
and let's explore this together.
Okay.
So step 1, according to the source material, is to just focus on an issue.
Okay.
It doesn't have to be anything major,
Right.
just something that you'd like to feel a bit better about, and then, notice how it makes you feel.
Take a moment to just tune into your emotional state, because we often go through our days not even realizing what we're feeling.
It's like having the notifications turned off on your phone.
Yeah.
Get to decide when you check in.
Exactly. And then once you've kind of identified that feeling, maybe it's like some frustration, a little bit of anxiety, something like that, then we move on to step 2.
Okay, so step 2 is where we get to ask ourselves one of those 3 questions. Could I let this feeling go? Could I allow this feeling to be here? Or could I welcome this feeling?
Right.
And remember, they emphasize not overthinking it. It's just a yes or no.
Yeah, just your gut.
What are your thoughts on that? Why not try to analyze the answers?
Well, because when we overthink things, it's like we create all this distance from the actual experience of the emotion,
Right.
And what the Sedona Method wants you to do is really dive into that experience. And that initial gut response, that's the most important.
It's like that moment you realize you've locked yourself out of the house.
Yeah.
You can analyze how it happened later.
Right.
But in that moment, you just have to be like, okay, this is happening.
Exactly.
So you've acknowledged it. You've checked in with yourself.
Yes.
Now we're at step 3.
All right.
This is all about choice.
Okay.
Are you willing to let this feeling go? This is where you decide if you're ready to say goodbye to this feeling.
It's a big decision.
And if you're on the fence, if you're hesitant, they have this great question. Would I rather have this feeling, or would I rather be free?
Ooh, I like that.
Right.
Gets right to the point.
It really makes you think about what that feeling is costing you, peace of mind, energy, maybe even joy.
Yeah, totally.
It's like you've been carrying around a rock in your backpack for no reason.
Right.
You could keep carrying it, or you could put it down.
Feel lighter.
And that leads us right into step 4. When will you let it go?
Oh, I like this one.
And the answer, of course, is right now.
Yes. Now is the time.
Because there's no better time to embrace that freedom than right now, It's about realizing that you have the power to choose
In this moment.
how you want to feel. Exactly.
I like that.
And, what's even better, you can keep doing this as many times as you need. It's not like a one and done.
Right.
It's a process.
It's a journey.
Journey of self-discovery.
Exactly.
And just like with any journey, there's going to be some bumps in the road.
Yeah.
Maybe a detour or two.
May need to take a break.
Right. But the Sedona Method wants us to be patient. Approach this with a little self-compassion.
It really is.
It's like learning to meditate,
Oh, yeah?
The more you just sit with yourself,
Yeah.
the more comfortable you get with the quiet, with the stillness.
What a great way to put it. And just like meditation, the more you practice releasing with the Sedona Method, it just becomes this natural part of your life.
Yeah.
You just start to notice those feelings, those unwanted feelings, they pop up.
Right.
And you're ready for them.
Yeah, you've got the tools to deal with them.
Exactly.
So it's not about never feeling those things again. It's more about being better at navigating them.
Totally.
You're not trying to erase them. You're just learning to deal with them a little better, a little more gracefully.
Exactly. You get more flow.
It's like you're learning the language.
Yes.
Yeah.
And as you get more fluent, then you start to see the patterns, the triggers.
Yeah.
And that's really powerful because then you can choose how you want to respond.
It's like a superpower,
It is.
being able to choose instead of just reacting.
Totally.
Yeah.
And one of the things I think is so cool about the Sedona method is this emphasis on the present moment.
Yeah.
Because so often we're stuck in our heads.
Oh, totally.
Thinking about the past, worrying about the future.
We miss what's right in front of us.
Exactly. But the Sedona method reminds us that we have a choice.
Yeah.
We can stay stuck, or we can, let it go and just be present.
It's like hitting the reset button on your mind.
I love that.
So much of what we've talked about today, it reminds me of other things like mindfulness, cognitive behavioral therapy, all that.
Sure.
How do you compare the Sedona method to these other approaches that are out there?
Well, I think there's some overlap, of course, but the Sedona method is really simple.
Yeah.
And it's all about experiencing the emotion, not just thinking about it.
Right. Getting out of your head.
Exactly.
Into your heart.
Yes.
Speaking of the heart, the source material talks about how this practice has long-term benefits. It's not just about feeling better in the moment.
It's deeper than that.
What are some of those long-term benefits that you've seen?
Well, people tell me that they feel lighter, freer, more at peace, and not just with themselves, but with everything around them.
Wow, that's huge.
It is. And their relationships get better.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Communication is just easier. Decisions are easier to make because you're not carrying around all that baggage.
Yeah, it's like a weight has been lifted.
Exactly. It's about realizing that you have the power to choose how you feel, and that changes everything.
This has been such an insightful deep dive into the Sedona method.
It's powerful stuff.
What's the one thing you want our listeners to take away from this?
That you are not your emotions, right?
Yeah.
You are so much bigger than that.
Yeah.
You have the power to choose how you respond to any feeling.
Choose how you want to feel.
Exactly. That's the freedom we're talking about.
This has been amazing.
Thank you.
And listeners, remember, emotional well-being, it's a journey.
That's ongoing.
It's not about being perfect. It's about, being curious, being kind to yourself.
Practice, right.
Practice.
It makes a difference.
So, until next time, happy releasing, everyone.